Good afternoon, members. It is now 1 p.m. Monday, August 7, 2023, and the Joint Committee of the House Standing Committee on Commerce and Tourism and the House Standing Committee on Judiciary and Governmental Operations will come to order. With three members from the Commerce and Tourism present and three from the JGO present, this constitutes a quorum to conduct today's joint meeting. Good afternoon again to the viewing public, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I would like to introduce the members of the House Standing Committee on Commerce and Tourism. To my left, Representative Roman Benavente, and to his left, Representative Manny Castro, and on my right, Representative Denita Yangtimay. At this time, I would like to recognize Chairwoman Marisa Flores to introduce the member of the committee in her committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to recognize those sitting in the JGO committee, recognize Rep. Manny Castro, recognize Representative Joel Camacho, recognize Rep. Vicente Aldon. I yield.
Also, I would like to introduce the staff of this committee: House Legal Counsel John Bradley, Legislative Assistant Claire Sablon, and Cameron Nicholas. Sergeant at Arms will be present in a few moments, and our IT Manager, Jonathan Diaz. Next on our agenda is adoption of today's agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? Okay. Thank you. There's a motion to adopt today's agenda and it has been seconded. Discussion?
Ready.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Moving along on our agenda, the next order of business is public comments. I now open the floor for public comments, specifically on the items listed on our agenda for today. Saying that there's none, I would like to close public comments and move to the next item on our agenda, which is old business. We have none. Next on our agenda is new business. We only have one item on the new business, which is Senate Bill 23-16 to amend the Commonwealth Disaster Price Freeze Act of 1996 to provide for a flexible response to the economic challenge posed by the COVID-19 health emergency and for other purposes. This bill was passed anonymously in the Senate committee on June 30 and was transmitted to our on the House the same day. Senate Committee Report number 23-32 recommend the passage of House Bill 23-16 in its current form, and comments were received from the following government entities: Office of the Attorney General, dated March 14, 2023; Department of Finance, dated March 7, 2023; Department of Commerce, dated February 27, 2023, and Saipan Chamber of Commerce, dated March 3, 2023. The agent stated it should be noted that the Commonwealth Price statute accord to the governor with wide discretion to impose a price freeze. The Secretary of Finance stated the Department of actually they have no comments or objection with respect to this bill. And for the Secretary of Finance comment, the only possible drawback, as stated, is when both price freeze and price cap are in effect, and perhaps provision detailing price freeze and price cap may occur simultaneously for the same disaster. If so, when a price is active and found above the price cap defined by the Consumer Price Index, should the vendor adjust or be penalized? So that will be in our discussion. The Saipan Chamber of Commerce stated and supports this bill on a provisional basis, suggests the additional below. One is to provide for discretionary authority for the Department of Commerce to allow an exemption to the CPI limitation. The CPI is the Commerce Price Index, and should be given businesses be drastically affected by the price freeze. Second, to provide for a mechanism for oversight to prevent price freeze from going beyond the time frame of a given emergency. I now open the floor for discussion. Any discussion from the members? Okay. I recognize Chair Flores for the proper motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I place the motion on the table, I'd like to acknowledge also Representative Atto and Representative Malcolm Omar, who also sit in the JGO committee, and recognize Mr. Vicente Camacho, also from the JGO. Thank you, gentlemen. Right now, I'd like to offer a motion for Senate Bill number 23-16 HS1, which has been given to the members. So move.
There is a standing motion and has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Rep. Atto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, on the substitute version, what were the changes?
I recognize Chairwoman Marissa Flores.
So the initial bill, thank you, Madam Chair. The initial bill that was passed in the Senate on page 2, line 17, it reads, "In the event of an index cap, it shall be legal," and that was underlined. However, they did not finish to underline the rest of that paragraph. So in the House substitute, what we did was, because that was realized by the council, the only change to this substitute bill is to underline from line 17, "In the event of an index cap, it shall be legal to raise the price of any items." I think we need to strike out the second "of" as a technical items for sale or housing rentals, including apartments and condos, beyond the monthly increase in the consumer price index of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that was the only major change, was the underline from line 17, all the way to line 20.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Furthermore, so I get my understanding with the changes would be to fix what was underlined on section B, subsection 2B, right? No, because 2B is talking about upon the declaration of a price cap. And then in line 17, in the event of an index cap, it shall be illegal, right? Illegal to raise, correct. But on B, it's talking about the price cap, then all price of items for sale and housing shall be permitted to increase by no more than the increase of the consumer price index of the U.S. Bureau. So if there's a cap already in the Bureau, we can't. Okay. So just so it's clear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I recognize Rep. Manny Castro.
My only concern is the consumer price index is the reference is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and not commerce, like our local commerce. And like these are very different economies, from island economy to national economy. So that's my only concern, is how would that affect the business economy on island, because the reference is a bigger economy. That's all.
Recess. Okay, members, we're back in our committee meeting from our recess. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to adopt Senate Bill 23-16 recess. Back into our meeting. There's a standing motion to adopt Senate Bill 23-16 in the form of House Substitute 1. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. House Bill, House Bill 23-16 in the form of House Substitute 1 is now adopted. Recess. Apologies for that. We're now back in the meeting. I would like to recognize, we're back to the main motion to offer, to address House Bill 23-16. I'm sorry, Senate Bill 23-16, HS1. I recognize Manny Castro.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I understand the intent of this bill, but my only concern is that the reference point indicated is the consumer price index of the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And mind you, the U.S. economy is a way bigger reference point in comparison to our small island economy. So the concern is, well, when we're using that type of reference point, it it might do the opposite. It might have the opposite effect of what we're trying to do. So instead of um, keeping the prices at affordable, it might make it more expensive. Um, so that's the main concern I have. We've seen it already where when you just like Rep Pato mentioned in prior is that when you like even with our labor shortage right now, the prevailing wage, it's it's so high um, that most people cannot afford it. Look at all our houses right now. Like families are having a hard time just repairing their existing homes. A one bedroom house is which used to cost 40,000 or less, 20,000 is now 200,000. And that all happened when we used the national reference point and like the prevailing wage. So a tile setter is around $14 to $16 an hour when your average person makes way less than that in the CNMI. Median household income is still really low. So we just got to be careful with the language on here when we use a U.S. Reference point or we cite that National Consumer Price Index. And at the same time, if we're gonna change the language to use the Consumer Price Index from the Department of Commerce, I also suggest that we make sure that the Department of Commerce has adequate funding to do the studies that it needs to do to give us a real accurate figure. Thank you, Chair. You.
Any other members? Rep. Benavente, you have anything?
I'm just listening to earlier discussion that was brought upon by Representative Bijayato, and it's true. I'm looking at the salary scale that we have here. It's really a mess. Really, when you look at it, uncontrolled, we cannot enforce it because we didn't have any laws that are set up to control the salary increase and everything. So with that said, I think what we need to do is we have to properly look at this bill very closely, and what is mentioned earlier, by Manny Castro and others concerned. I think it's nothing against the bill. The bill has a good intent, but the threshold of maybe we can put the U.S. requirement as a threshold, high threshold. But for Saipan, we need to try to explore more other detailed type of approach when it comes to setting our minimum wage. Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman.
Recognize Rep. Ato. I mean, sorry, Rep. Odon. Sorry. You have anything earlier, Rep. Odon? I'm sorry. I take the back.
Rep. Don wanted to say something
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, I just saw your hands up earlier. You okay.
Oh, I
Uh,
noticed his hands were up earlier, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. So you have Rep. Camacho.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Um, I have a question, maybe regarding maybe for the legal counsel. In the event of a price freeze, I mean, is that technically mean that the current price that it's as like a vendor or store sets it at is pretty much stuck at that price? Is that
Without this legislation, yes, it would have been frozen. But this introduces sort of a little window for which the sort of what they're calling an index cap gives them some room to make some of those increases during that. And this just simply says that raise during that freeze can't be for more than the monthly increase in the consumer price index. It gives some flexibility during the freeze, is what it does.
Yeah, because my concern is if, for example, a public notice goes out and there's like a storm coming or whatever, sometimes these vendors, they react and they raise their prices, and then the administration implements a price freeze. And then, there's no playroom where, as to say, you're stuck at that price. Is there a way that they can negotiate at least downward?
Oh, no,
That's
this
my
is a
concern.
price freeze, not a price reduction. This bill doesn't do that.
So may I maybe recommend that we add some kind of language into there that maybe, because a lot of our
You want to order businesses to reduce their prices.
I mean, give them the ability to give discounts if they want to give discounts.
Well, they can always reduce the price. This just says that's a cap. They can't go higher than that. They
Okay,
can
so
always
that's
go
that's
lower.
still, in essence, technically in there. Then they have the ability to do that instead of prerogative.
Yeah, that's the meaning of a cap. It's the
Okay.
top.
As long as that's in place, then. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. You.
Any other member?
Non-member.
I recognize Rep. Yumo.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I know I'm not a member, but just by reading the cap, and also we're also addressing apartments, right? Correct. The issue that we have now in the cinema is majority of the apartments don't have contracts. So what happened to those when you're living month to month? There's no, I guess, long-term agreement with landlords, and that's why landlords don't. They're also adjusting because they don't have commitments. They will rent for 1 month, they leave the next month. So they can also play around. That's the issue with what we have, I believe, in the cinema is contracts with regards to rentals of homes and apartments. We experience that all the time. Or for family businesses, rentals is normally month to month. There's no long term where it protects you. This one, I mean, we're setting a guideline for the U.S. We don't. It's a higher threshold, like what the other members were saying. Um, I think we should also consider a language that says if your prior month is 500, you shouldn't go more than 50% of that, because most of the landlords here are outside. Um, they're not, they're outside business, I guess, was what I'm trying to say, and most of them don't have contract. And that's the issue we're gonna have with a lot of our rentals is they will not. Even if they have big concerns with price, they don't normally increase. But if you don't have a contract, then the owner can come back and say the price is going to be like this, and there's no contract that ties you in. Thank you. That's just a concern that maybe the author can explain. And since the author's not here, maybe we should table the bill for a while. Jokes.
Thank you, Rep. Yumo. There's one, Rep. Castro, please.
Just in line with what Chairman Yumo just mentioned is at the same time, if we're to really look at the issue with housing, this is partly one of the reasons why a lot of apartment owners have switched to vacation rentals instead of apartment rentals, because of like when policy changes, and it might, their ability to make a profit on something, it might move them into a different market. So that's an additional concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Rep. Odon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree to what Chair Rep Yumo and everybody else was talking about. The experience as a landlord, right, that I came up to was that some of these businesses, okay, or investors that acquire apartment complexes and whatnot. One of the issues that the prior tenant, right, had was that they were getting kicked out in less than 30 days just so that the new investor, the new owner, wanted to, I don't know, increase the price or what have you. And they were using the economic conditions where, a lot of buildings are damaged, a lot of homes are damaged, a lot of apartment condos were damaged. And those that were still intact, some of these well-off investors would jump to that building and try to buy it out and then increase the price. But then those that are living there were given less than 30-day notice to vacate so that they can bring in higher paying customers. So I totally agree with the bill, but there has to be a law that protects these renters, from being victims of these so-called investors, that do not give them the chance. And we have to understand that during times of calamity like typhoon and houses and apartments are destroyed, that all these price freezing is great because it prevents those owners that are not affected to increase the price of a new renter or possibly new renter coming in because their former home was destroyed. So I totally agree, but we just have to, I think, create a bill that would protect these lessees from being victims of these leasers. So, thank you.
Rep. Yumo, go
Thank
ahead.
you. And just going back to what Repo Don said, that a lot of this is basically contracts. And a lot of the issues here is the people that are renting here don't have contracts. So if you're on a month-to-month lease or rent, you're obligated to give them 15 days, which is half of a month. So if you have a contract for a year, you're given at least 6 months notice that you have to leave if there's a new owner and so forth. But a lot of the times, like I said, going back, there's no contract with a lot of these landlords to the tenants. That's all.
Rebato?
Madam Chair, can we, since we're gonna follow the U.S. Consumer Price Index, do we have the average price of these types of apartments and condos that we can compare to the CNMI? Because let's say that they do decide to follow California's. Are we gonna be able to go from 500 a month to 5,000 a month? No. I think we should get at least that average so we can work on our price index rather than follow other jurisdictions. For the members of the 19th, we ran into this problem in regards to salaries, and the court decided for everybody. So, you,
So
I
people living,
recognize Rick Camacho.
thank you. People living in homes that do not sign contracts, and then you have people living in homes that sign contracts. I don't believe that their rent would be raised if the contract is correct. So what is our concern here? People that rent without contracts, it's illegal. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick Camacho. I recognize Rick Marisa Flores.
Thank you, Chair. And I think really with the healthy discussion and debate, it does pose some valid conversation with, Senator Magofnia. But, as what Rep. Yumo said is, you have some people that just lease month to month. And being that we're in a smaller community, sometimes they don't even have, a lease agreement. It's just word of mouth and, your honor that really just takes you, that commits you to this agreement. And whether one can say it's not the right way to do it, but it's just the common practice here, maybe for some on the island. So I think the debate was very healthy. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't think about. So I'd like to thank the committee for sharing their insight and their input. I leave it to, and I yield, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other discussion on or share
Madam Chair, may I request for a short recess?
recess? rise back to, from recess. Any other discussions? Ready? Okay. So,
If you count your ticket, it's over $1,000, so you have to claim it. No, it's fine. It's okay.
all right, members, back from recess. So at this point, the members of this committee, joint committee, have, placed on the floor suggestions regarding the Senate Bill 23-16, House Substitute 1. So at this point, I would like to get a motion to table this bill for now. Any discussion?
So
All in
moved.
favor, say aye. Those not in favor, say nay. Motion carries. Next on our agenda is miscellaneous. Any members have anything for miscellaneous? None. We move to the last item, which is the adjournment. Can I get a motion for an adjournment?
So move to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It's now 1:41 p.m. and this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank